Settled is a new charity working with hard-to-reach and vulnerable EU and EEA citizens in the UK and advocating for their right to live and work in the UK after Brexit. Christina, Eva, Maria, Kate and Tony will speak for about 20 minutes and then we'll have 10 minutes or so for questions. So Christina, I think you're going to start, so if you'd like to take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Anna, for muting me. Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Tegola. I am one of the service coordinators of Settle. With me here today, there are all my colleagues. We really appreciate this invite. We are a small team at Settle, but we all wanted to be here and introduce ourselves and the work that we do. I'll crack on because we don't have much time and we want to tell you quite a lot. So Hannah, please, if you can start sharing the slides. Settled is a charity that was founded in 2019 by some active members of the 3 Million, an organization that protects rights of EU citizens. And the main goal of Settled is to help vulnerable EU citizens to carry on living a normal life in the UK, as they do now, after Brexit. Next. As you probably know, Brexit has been agreed with a large referendum. The people have spoken, and we left the European Union in January 2020. We are now in a transitional period that will end on the 31st of December at 11 p.m. The citizens' rights have been agreed by Boris Johnson together with the Northern Ireland border issues, and all our rights are protected under the Withdrawal Agreement, what is called the Withdrawal Agreement. So when you hear about deal or no deal, this should not really affect the citizens' rights because we are under an umbrella has already been decided and we are already protected by it. Next. So what Boris Johnson has agreed in January 2020 is that people who live in the UK before the 31st December 2020 will be able to carry on staying, working, studying, using the NHS as they do now, if they apply for a new scheme before the 30th of June. So there are 2 deadlines. You have to start living in the UK before the end of the transitional period, the 31st of December 2020, and you can apply after up to the 30th of June. So you see that there is already a kind of a time, this grace period, the 6 months grace period, that there will be people coming from abroad without the right of applying to the EU settlement scheme and from January onwards, and people that maybe have been here for a long time, but they're still preparing the document, they're still putting together the paperwork, so they don't have the right. I mean, they can't show their status yet. So landlords and employers are asked not to ask for proof of status until the 1st of July 2021. Next, please. What do you get when you start thinking? What should you do when you start thinking about the EU settlement scheme? First of all, the application is free, but the application is completely online. And you should start thinking that some of the documents that you have to prove, some things that you have to provide, could take quite a long time. For example, the renewal of a passport or an ID, or for people who haven't, very vulnerable people, even proving the fact that they are in the UK, it could be difficult. Next. It's not only EU citizens that can apply, but also the family members. So is there non-EEA family members that are covered by the withdrawal agreement? So is their spouse, but also civil partners, if they've been in a durable relationship for more than 2 years before the 31st of December 2020. Also, they have to be married before the 31st of December. So the children, grandchildren, and parents and grandparents, they are all covered by the withdrawal agreement. What rights do you get if you apply for the EU settlement scheme? You do one application, but you can have 2 results. If you've been in the UK for less than 5 years, you will get pre-settled status, which is a temporary leave to remain and allows you to study in the UK, to work in the UK, live it here for 5 years, up to 5 years. And then after that, you have to make another application. If you meet the criteria, you can apply for settled status. Or you can apply to the EU settlement scheme because you've been living here for longer than 5 years, you will receive settled status, which is the indefinite leave to remain. And it allows you, of course, to live here indefinitely. And with settled status, you have to prove to get it that you have been here continuously for 5 years. So in the Home Office want to see proof of residence that tells that you have been here for every 12 months of the 5 years for more than 6 months in every 12 months. Next. To make an application, you will need a valid ID, you will need an email, and you will need a mobile phone number. This is what you really need. If you have a national insurance, it would help because it will make if you use the national insurance, it will make easier for the Home Office to see that you've been in the UK. They can detect it from the fact that you have paying taxes or claim benefits that you've been in the UK. For those people that they haven't used the national insurance number, they can put it in, but will probably be requested to prove further evidence. And in some cases, for example, self-employed, in some cases, even having the national insurance number, it doesn't
Christina, we can't.
Oh, sorry. I don't know when you lost me. Apologies.
1 minute ago.
My internet connection says it is unstable. When did you lose me?
Not more than a minute ago.
Okay, well, I think if you read the slide, you must have time to read it. At the end, what I said is about the national insurance number, that you don't really need it to make an application, but if you have used it, if you pay tax or claim benefits, it will make it easier and faster. But sometimes, even if you have it, you will need to provide further documents. Sorry about my connection, apologies. Anna, please next. The application is divided in 2 parts. This is an online application. The first part is done with a smartphone using the EU Exit ID document check app, which is an application that has been created supposedly by the Home Office to help with the scheme. And you can use this app if you have an ID, a biometric ID or biometric passport. If you don't, you will go directly to the second part, but you will need to post your ID document. The second part of the application is an online form, so also done on the computer, where the Home Office asks you for some questions. Next. So the first things that the Home Office wants to know is that you are a person of good character. So they will ask you if you have had criminal convictions. At the moment, they want to know if you had serious criminal convictions. If you have had any, if you know anyone that wants to apply and has had any, well, we signpost to immigration lawyers that give specific advice on that. Next, please. then the Home Office wants to see that you have been residing in the UK and having the national insurance number, as I said, can help. But if you are requested to provide further evidence, there are many ways of doing different documents and paperwork. I'm not going to read the list, but we help people through this part. Next, please. Then you get your status. So basically, if you have a valid ID, if you say that you don't have criminal records and you have proof of residence, you will get the status. If you've been here for more than 5 years, you will get settled status. Less than 4 years, pre-settled status. The status is digital. You don't get a card. You don't get any physical proof. It's linked to the valid ID that you provided when you made the application. And you shouldn't be requested to provide this status until the 30th of June 2021, so until the 1st of July. The other thing that you have to think is that proving the status digitally can be quite difficult, can be a barrier for the very vulnerable. The application itself is difficult because you need to be IT familiar, you have to have a computer, the right phone that has to be able to read the microchip in your ID document, but also proving the status means that you have to be able to link to the gov.uk website, you have to be able to get a sharing code, passing and sharing this information to the landlord, the employer, or the third party that asked you to provide your status. Next, please. So my presentation is finished. I think I was maybe a bit off. I should have been 8 minutes. I was 9. Apologies for that, Lucy. But I want to introduce my colleagues now. So Tony, if you can talk for a couple of minutes, and then we introduce the others.
Yeah, okay. Hi, my name is Tony and I'm one of the service coordinators of Settled. I'm working mainly in London and the south of England, while Christina is in the north. And I'm working also with our online services that are in Eastern European languages like Bulgarian, Romanian, Polish, Russian, etc. So the main there are a lot of difficulties that people meet, and that's why they need help. With Eastern Europeans, for example, the biggest, a lot of them, their English is not very good and they are not very acquainted with technologies. A lot of them, they work in at low-paid, low-skill works in warehouses, delivery companies, factories, farms, packing houses, and all these people, they do need help. So if you know someone who needs, you can put us through. Also, most of all the Roma communities are from Eastern Europe, so we are working with them too. We are working quite a lot with Bulgarian and Romanian and some Slovak Roma also. And there is a huge difficulties in their community also, no, as Christina said, not only for making their application, but for using, for managing, for navigating the status. And today we started one of our projects in school in London, where our representative is going to teach them, the Bulgarian Roma community there, the parents, how to use their status, because it is digital, it is complex for people who are not acquainted with the technologies and who can't speak English at all, or they speak it very, very little. So yeah, that's from me. Thanks.
Shall we, Eva, do you want to talk, please? Should we unmute Eva, Hannah?
Hi, my name is Eva, and I'm an outreach coordinator in Wales. As you may imagine, under the current situation, outreach work is really difficult, and that's our main concern in rural areas of Wales. Traditionally, South Wales, you have three big cities, towns, where there has been community groups established for a longer time. There's more provision of services. Down South Wales, we don't have as much concern as about the Mid Wales, North Wales, West Wales rural areas, where there might be issues with internet connection, and also there's only 3 scanning centres in Wales. They are closed now, and it might be difficult to travel to them as well if people can't use their phones to scan documents. Also, some people might be living isolated. They might appear that they are integrated into the British society, but actually it might be that they are quite isolated from those services and community groups who might be aware of the EU settlement scheme, and also who might be aware of services which are available around. In Wales, the Welsh Government is funding a partnership of 6 service providers. Apart from Settled, they fund East, CAB Cymru, Newport Mind, TGP Cymru, which is a Welsh charity working with children, and also Newfields Law. This is a law firm which provides pro bono advice to those who might have complex cases, so who might need a bit more help with their applications. And therefore, if you are, if you know of people in Wales who are EU nationals, please help us spread the message. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Eva. And finally, I would like to give the word to Maria, that will tell you about our project with volunteers.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm a Spanish citizen. I'm the volunteer manager for Settled. I would like to let you know that we have around 100 volunteers around the UK. And we also have a partnership with another organization called Citizens' Rights Scotland. So we pretty much, between the organizations plus the Welsh coordination, we cover the whole of the UK. So if you know anyone who might need help in your community to apply to the EU settlement scheme, or people who might have questions, our advisors are authorized to give immigration advice, and they are registered with the Office of the Immigration Services Commissioner, the OISC. So we are, basically reliable, multilingual, and we are, have a lot of experience with the EU settlement scheme. So if you want to refer people to us, we can give details of how to do that, in the chat or at the end of the presentation. I just wanted to take up a minute just to talk a little bit more about the vulnerable EU citizen categories. It won't take me long, but it's for you to be able to identify, I think Eva and Tony have covered some of the issues, but I just want to focus a little bit in the groups that have been identified as needing help to do the application. So some of the groups are children in care and recent care leavers. They might not have a link to their EU citizen parent if they have an EU connection. Victims of domestic abuse, they might not have the paperwork to prove their residence in the UK. People living in poverty, they might not have continuous employment to show their residence in the UK. Homeless people and rough sleepers, for obvious reasons, they are very vulnerable category. Then the migrant Roma communities are a group that needs help in particular to access the system. Also very long residents, people who have lived in the UK for a long time. They have been here, some of them for decades, and they might not know they need to apply and might have difficulty applying to the scheme. People who have EU permanent residence, some people have some documents, they're going to cease to be valid at the end of the year, but they don't know they have to apply. children of EU citizens. Some parents apply for themselves, but they don't apply for their children, so they are at risk. As we said during the presentation, people with criminal convictions need special help to declare their convictions properly. Isolated people, as Eva was saying, is a problem in Wales. People who have language barriers and are not used to engaging, with official procedures in the UK. People with low levels of literacy in general, or literacy in the digital world. People with disabilities. People lacking evidence of the relationship with the EU citizen, for example, non-EU partners who might struggle with this. And people who have arrived shortly before the cut-off date, so people who have arrived recently. And as well, there is an individual cliff edge, because as Cristina was explaining, the people have to apply first for pre-settled status, and then they need to reapply for settled status when they complete 5 years of residence. So we anticipate that some people will forget to do this or might not understand they need to do this procedure twice. So I think this might be helpful. So if you know anyone who is in this situation and might need help, please get in touch with us.
So you met all of our team. There is also ERK Smart, our CEO, and we are ready here to take your questions. I'm aware of time. I'm sorry if we overrun, but as you see, there is a bit of things to do. And from your questions, you can tell that my 8 slides were not enough, probably. So please do ask questions. We are here to help you.
So if anyone's got any questions, you can either put them in the chat or you can request to unmute, and Hannah will let you ask your question with your voice. There have been a few questions in the chat already. I think most of them have been addressed. One of them was about appeal. If you think you've been given the wrong status or if you've been refused settled status altogether, I wonder if one of you could tell us a little bit about the process of appealing and how long you can do that for, and also what happens if you are refused a settled or pre-settled status altogether, or you forget to apply before June, what happens then?
Well, there are lots of questions in there. No, it's fine. So if you have received a refusal, and at the moment we have decided that the percentage is still low overall, you are allowed to make a new application up to the 30th of June 2021, and in the new application you can provide further documents, further proofs. You can also ask for review, and this one is an internal review from the Home Office. It costs money while the application is free, so what we just say up to the 30th of June, just make a new application, we will help you, we assist you. Sorry, what was the other question, Lucy? I just missed it.
We've actually got a question from Angela, so I wonder if you'd like to ask your question, Angela.
This is a general question that many organizations are facing, which is that many online forms do not use simple English. I mean,
yes.
I am a classic online idiot. It took me ages to even get into this meeting because there was no window there that said, if you have already registered, click here to join the meeting. But instead they used a whole variety of technical terms that I didn't understand. You know, and this is so important when you're dealing with people who have not got English as a first language. The complications, the people who make up websites, the people who are online WizKids, they can't imagine what it's like not to be able to understand things. They have to talk in simple English, otherwise it is sheer persecution.
Yes, I share your concern, and also say leave to remain, just leave to remain term puzzle many of the EU citizens. What does it mean leave to remain? But Tony, maybe you want to answer to this question, because language is a massive issue for Eastern Europeans.
And even for moderately
But it is
intelligent
for
people.
most. It is for most. Yes.
When I was working in Bangladesh, a friend of mine who was an Irishman married a Bangladeshi girl. He's got her over to this country after years of application. And he said the last form I had to fill in was 62 pages. It nearly killed me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just to have pages made up that you don't fall at the first fence, you know.
Yes. Tony, do you want to make some examples, the common examples?
You are quite right, Angela, because as I said, a lot of Eastern Europeans, their English is not that they don't speak at all, but it's quite basic, and they can work with it, but they work in quite low skill jobs, and when they need to deal with documents, it makes just because of the complexity of the language and terminology, it makes them feel very insecure if they are getting the things right, if they will answer, their answers will be right, and because this is very important for their life, for their right to stay here and to keep working and living. So that's why a lot of them, they are seeking help from us. And the categories that this is really extremely difficult for them. And adding to this, the digital nature of the status for elderly, it's also very, very difficult, because you don't have any physical proof, you don't have evidence, you need to go online every time when someone wants to for you to prove your status. And in spite the Home Office is saying that landlords and employers, they are not allowed to ask people for status until the 30th of June. In reality, they have started asking, and a lot of people are getting to us and saying this and asking how to prove their status. So, it's not easy.
And this also applies to people who used to be called educationally subnormal, but are having a cracking education now and are doing more than they ever did. It also applies to people like me who have a mental block. I'm 6 years at Oxford, no help at all. I'm an online idiot, you know. And please, these very bright kids that are asked to make up websites, please ask them to try it out on their granny first.
Yesterday, I had a phone call from a German lady who has been living here for 50 years and whose husband is British and grandkids are British. So now she needed to do this application and she tried to connect the council to the scan center. So she was very happy that when she called us, because I mean, we were able to get her through the process. And exactly, she was saying the same like you, that she's, I think she said 78, she's not in these technologies. It makes her feel very nervous, and although she doesn't believe, and also she's very reluctant to do it, because she's been, her life, she spent almost all her life here, and now after 50 years, she needs to prove that she has the right to continue living, which is really a bit of ridiculous.
For this kind of people, just to put in the picture, Settle offers help with our outlines, and the idea was that we moved, I mean, we were doing face-to-face help throughout the country with our volunteers. We have an amazing team of volunteers, 100 people across the UK. But since March 2020 and the COVID-19 emergency, we have moved our help online and through outlines, Facebook, WhatsApp. You say we got it. But this is putting strain on our building up. We pay things that we hadn't allowed for, and we are at the moment actively trying to fundraising for these helplines. We are helping with helpline. We really help senior EU citizens we've been here for decades, as Tony was saying, and they find it talking on the phone much easier than going on a website or doing a form. And we follow them step by step through the application. We go to the Home Office on one phone, we help the EU citizen elderly on the other phone. We really try our best to contact consulates and embassies, and we're doing some work at the moment, a big campaign with embassies. The French has already written a letter to over 65 years old. The Italian embassy will send another one in a week time to over 70 years old to inform them and to let them know that there is a real need for them to apply. We don't want to create any emergency. We don't want to scare people, but at the same time, this is a real issue. People need to apply. The fact that they're married to British, being here for decades, doesn't mean that it will not become unlawful after the deadline.
Okay, I think we're going to need to leave it there because we've gone over a little bit, but thank you so much for everyone for coming, and thank you especially to everyone from Settled for speaking to us today. You can find Settled at settled.org.uk, and you can find JPIT at jointpublicissues.org.uk. Both of those websites have lots of resources on them, and on our website on JPIT's website is a document about supporting an application to a scheme as a church or community leader that might be helpful to look at if you still have questions. And Maria has just put an email in the chat that you can email Settled on as well if you need any help supporting an application. So once again, thank you so much everyone for coming, and
thanks for the invite. Thank you, it was our pleasure.
Pleasure.
And do drop us an email.